Mike,
Yes.
if there was ever a little secret museum, this is a secret museum. And it's brilliant, isn't it?
It certainly is.
And most people who come here for a cup of tea or a bit of sponge won't have a clue that it's here, will they?
No,
Just a very unfortunate thing.
It is in a way. It's a private collection as much as a museum, but it is open whenever people wish it to be. So if a customer comes in, there's some cabinets inside with artifacts in as well, which brings their attention to what was happening here. The staff give me a shout and say there's somebody interesting. I come down and then we have a little talk on the airfield. I bring them out here, show them the museum and various other artifacts that are around the place.
Mike, this is a museum as it should be. It's full of items of interest and not computer video screens. People like to see stuff, and here is stuff. And most of this stuff relates to where we're standing today. And where are we, Mike?
We're at RAF Harrowbeer at Yelverton, Devon. Why was it called Harrowbeer? Well, if it was called Yelverton, when the pilots were up in the air over the radio transmitters, there would be a possibility of getting Yelverton muddled up with Yeovilton. So they decided to come up with the name Harrowbeer, which is an area about half a mile away from here where there was a large country house, and that was why they decided to call it that.
Now I see some objects of great interest here. This object up here is a...
The yellow dinghy there is a K-type dinghy, which would be used by fighter pilots. So a single-seater aircraft, your pilot, when he goes out, you've probably seen he has a parachute pack on his back, and then dangling underneath is another smaller pack. In that smaller pack is a dinghy like this, folded up, quite small. The fighter pilot then goes off on his operation or scramble. If he gets involved with a dogfight, the chances are that pack could be punctured by bullets, in which case when the pilot, or if the pilot, has to bail out, it's hit and miss as whether that dinghy is actually going to save his life. Yeah. If it's full of holes, it's not going to stay up.
But it did work.
Oh, it worked amazingly. The very first, if we go back to the Battle of Britain, pilots never had any dinghies. If they were bailed out and landed in the sea, they were reluctant or reliable on a motor vessel or lifeboat coming and picking them up.
Air Sea Rescue.
Air Sea Rescue, but it was boats Air Sea Rescue,
yes.
Not aircraft Air Sea Rescue. So it was motor launches operated out from Plymouth, Salcombe, Great Yarmouth, places like that.
Now this item up here is also of great interest because there's a story to it, isn't it?
Yeah, this is a Mark 9 Spitfire Canopy that came from a local barn about 3.5–4 miles down the road. It's never been issued. I've actually got indoors in the archives a little brown tag that would have been hanging from there, which was its issue ticket. So we know it's never been on an aeroplane. My thoughts are that after the Second World War ended and Harrowbeer went on to care and maintenance, somebody somehow managed to get on the airfield and took that as a souvenir.
And jolly good to them as well.
Absolutely.
Now
so
what do we have here? This is something we see in a lot of films, isn't it?
This is your scramble bell. A 1940 scramble bell. Unfortunately, not Harrowbeer's. Alongside it, we have an Airaid Siren.
Now that is one by hand, isn't it?
This is a portable Airaid Siren. Normally they would be mounted on poles outside places of importance like the town halls, police stations, fire stations, such buildings as that. This is a portable Airaid Siren, which would be on the airfield, and there'd be quite a few of these dotted around at the various dispersal bays. So the sound would go up, scramble, scramble, air raid coming on, and this would be sounded to warn everybody in the vicinity to take cover into their shelters. Harrowbeer was Harrowbeer was never bombed. It was never strafed, which a lot of people find hard to believe. The closest we came was in March 1942, when 6 bombs dropped on Chud Tor, where Yelverton Golf Course is. And that was witnessed by a 19-year-old WAF bringing airmen back from their R&R in Plymouth.
Okay, let's look around here now. There's a lot of items here, and another item of interest here we looked at is this watering can, which it isn't, of course,
it looks like a watering can, but in actual fact it's called a goose neck flare, with the long neck, and out of that neck would be a wick. This would be filled with paraffin, kerosene, anything that would burn. Harrowbeer never had runway lighting, or electronic runway lighting. When we started doing night operations and practice flights, we were dependent on the gooseneck flare. There would probably be, and I honestly don't know, but I would think in the range of between 50 and 100 of these down either side of the runway. And it was an airman's job, or airmen, to go down when flying was to take place and light them. That would give enough guidance for the aircraft to take off, and similarly the same sort of thing when they were coming into land. Once the aircraft had gone off on their operation, they would be extinguished and then relit again when the aircraft are returning.
And we move along here, we have a parachute.
We have a parachute, but this parachute here is not your fighter pilot's parachute. This one is a back parachute, so this would be more likely to be used by an air gunner in the rear turret of a Lancaster, Wellington, or that type of aircraft.
So when we see a film with them leaping from an aircraft, that is quite often what they would...
They're reliant on that to save their life.
Of course. And there is such a lot of items. How long have you been collecting these things?
These items here have been collected since 2005.
You've done very, very well.
I'm very, very grateful to a lot of customers and local people that have donated the items. And all that started by a little mannequin girl that I had in the tea rooms. She's not on show, unfortunately. But she was in the tea rooms, and I made a little cardboard box for a gas mask for her. And one of the customers came in one day and said, "That's not right, the box is too small." 3 days later, she came back with 3 gas masks in cardboard boxes and 3 tin helmets that she'd found up in the loft. Things then grew from there and snowballed to some extent to what we've got now.
The reason this is so good, this relates to this area. It's our heritage. It's not the heritage from somewhere else. It's the heritage that was in this area.
Yep, I mean, to be honest with you, some of the bits have come from a distance, but they are relevant to what would have been on the airfield.
That is that's the important thing.
Yeah, we try to keep it as much as possible to RAF Fighter Station Base, so that people can see what actually went on.
And of course, this is remains of a Spitfire.
This here is the remains of a Spitfire Merlin engine, and to be honest with you, this is an example. This display here came from Sussex towards the end of the Battle of Britain, but it's relevant in as much as this would have been in the aircraft such as the Hurricane up here in the ceiling, which is a quarter scale Hurricane, which when you look at that is quite small for a 19, 20, 22-year-old boy to be sitting in protecting England.
Mike, I really can't thank you enough, and let's hope this little film brings your collection to a lot more people.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much.